Hi everyone, this is Jason Zach from Nathaniel School of Music. In this sort of expanding series or ever growing series, I hope, as long as I keep coming up with stuff, I'm going to show you some of my go to methods of playing melodies, riffs, licks, phrases, chords in general, while others might just read a chord chart and play a D major as it is, and then you have a printed pattern. When I see things like that, how do I try and go a bit beyond? Or maybe I don't think much, it's just maybe with our experience as we play for many years, we end up gravitating towards a few patterns which just happen. And these days, I try to tell myself, don't do some of it, here and there, unless it's for a recording. And, these are things which kind of put a stamp on my kind of playing, or the reason why someone ends up hiring you for a recording or a performance is because you play the way you are known to play, and you kind of play the piano as though it's an extension of your voice. So I'm not a vocalist, but I'm sure every vocalist will tell you that they have a unique voice, and that's why they get hired. And within that unique voice, they have a way of switching between their different tonalities, textures, registers, and so on. It's the same with a horn player or a violin player. The way they do their vibrato or their bending techniques would be very unique. Now, the piano is not that much of a versatile instrument when it comes to pitch in general, in the sense you can't really play a note and do a slide. Yes, you can use a pitch bend, but it's more for synthesizers and the other domain of keyboard playing, the bigger picture of synths and so on. But you can't really do that as smoothly as a violin or the human voice or a trumpet or a sitar or a veena or a flute. So we are left with a very binary instrument. You play it, and you have an option to probably play this at a certain volume, loud or soft. You can't really do much to D flat. It is what it is. It's just prepared for you, D flat. You don't even tune the piano. You hire a tuner once every few months or something. Or if you have a digital piano or a MIDI controller, you don't even bother tuning it. Imagine if a digital piano or a MIDI controller were to go out of tune. That would be really scary, because no one would even expect you to be out of tune. Which is why sometimes some of the mechanical tools like the pitch bend, the mod wheel, you have to check them, in the sense, they might actually adjust your pitch the wrong way, and might actually be used out of tune. Anyway, that aside, let's get to few of the techniques that I use on stage for pretty much every single genre, and I hope you learn something from this ongoing series. And maybe you've observed some of my music, the riffs which I put out regularly. Maybe you like a technique or two in that. You could let me know in the comments. You could link me up and say, how did you do this part or this section? And there are a lot of riffs which can be categorized by emotion, by genre, subgenre, and everything, more or less. Okay, so before we get to it, you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button and hit the bell for regular notifications. And you can also support us on Patreon, where you get my handwritten notes, MIDI files, notation, backing tracks, wherever applicable. You can also interact with me with workshops and so on. Okay, let's get cracking. So the first technique is just a sort of a fluttering chord technique. So if I take a long D flat major, okay, and if I play it in maybe the first inversion, okay, now you might you just need to hold it. If you're supposed to just hold it like that, you can kind of go from the bottom note to the top note. It doesn't have to be just hit all together. So you can play it exactly like what a guitarist would do. Just even a beginner guitarist will have to play chords like that, because you don't strum all 6 strings. It's one to the next to the next to the next. But of course it happens really fast. So you think they're actually playing all the notes together. But actually it's going one by one, isn't it? So on the piano, you can kind of go, instead of playing D flat like this, you can just go from bottom. Okay, so if you have just a melody line going na 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 na, and maybe at the accent point na 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 na, you can do the flam na 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 na, flam na 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 na. So it almost announces the chord, and you can do it from the reverse direction as well. But when I do it from the reverse direction, what I like to do is add a note to the chord. So if you take D flat like this, you could add the 4 to it. You get a nice D flat add 4. You get some really nice harmony. I like the minors as, or you can do, or let's just take it on C. So it's just a regular old C minor chord. So, and the more notes you have to do the flam, the better. So just to sound like a 6-string instrument or a sitar or whatever, to get that vibe, it's good to have more than 3 notes, don't you think? So it's just that. So if you do a minor chord with an add 2, it sounds very cool. Or if you do a major chord, what I like to do is with the add 4, like I showed you earlier. I'm overdoing it, but you get the idea. You need to kind of use these as sauces or spices or pickles in your composition. Don't overuse it. So maybe at the beginning, if the song starts like, you can kind of introduce the song or get the vocalist ready to sing the line, and here and there you can spice it up, like just to announce the section. So the whole idea with a major or a minor, try your best to maybe add a note to the chord. So A major, add a 4, which is the D or D flat major, add its perfect 4, which is the G flat or C major. Add the 4, which is the F, and then you keep the 3. For minor, I tend to like to add in the 2, the regular 2. Okay, so you get the idea. And if you're not able to add a note, you can still. Wise men say only you can do it guitar style. Trung, 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 trung. Very standard. It's pretty much how people play guitar, isn't it? But for piano, I'm kind of adding that extra suspension, or add 4 as we have to call it. Okay, so moving on to the second technique, which I tend to use a lot when ending a song which is very bluesy or funky or sometimes even a rock song. So I actually composed a song for my first solo album. So I ended up taking that, and it just kept happening with a lot of bands that I played. I've used it in so many keys, in so many contexts, that after so many years of playing, you realize, okay, I should stop doing that. It's overdone for me at least, but it might be new for you. So I do this a lot on the key of F. So the original riff was... Okay, so it's essentially an F major blues composition. So that's F major blues. So, but it borrows that Mixolydian flat 7 as well. So you can kind of template this to pretty much the entire descent of the keyboard. So if I'm ending a song where the whole band is going, just songs over, drummers doing his cymbals, you can kind of do this, and then you kind of end the song there. Okay, but you can break this down into a smaller fragment. So if you just start there, it's essentially a slide from a minor third to a major third. So you could do this with any chord. Okay, and then it continues descending. A nice bluesy note, which is the minor 7th. And then we come down to the perfect fifth. So you can do just a small lick like... Now if you want to continue the lick, you can kind of... Ta-da, ta-da. You do the C and the B flat, or the Pa, or the 5th and the 4, and to continue down the keyboard. So you can kind of start a song like... You can bring that in for every tone. So I like it because it gives you a lot of bluesy flavor, Mixolydian flavor. You get that slide, and it's very easy on the fingers for some reason. It's like playing just a normal pentatonic lick, but you're getting that blues note and the Mixolydian note in it as well. So it's essentially a major pentatonic with the added blues note, which is the flat 3, and the Mixolydian note, which is the flat 7. So you get that whole combo and practice it down the keyboard. So you can learn this lick, which is part of a song that I've composed. And it works over a 12 bar. Okay, so it's part of an entire composition, but the essential lick would be... And you can displace the notes to make it your own, I guess. So that's a bluesy lick for you, or a bluesy approach to playing, and practice it on other keys. Just maybe only do that. And then the whole thing. And then maybe G. Okay, so that's on your G chord. And and then that's the lick in triplets. Ta-ta-kita, ta-kita, 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 ta-kita. You can do a lot of things with a lick, actually. Okay, so hope that was useful. That was sort of my go-to approach, part 2. Moving on to the next one, it's basically a harp inspired technique. So a harp kind of, so this is a bit, continuing from the guitar, we were influenced by it going thrung, like you're strumming up, but with a harp you kind of play it with your fingers, right? So you can just go in all these random directions. Now I have no clue about harp patterns, neither do I have or own or play a harp, but just to get some inspiration from them, if you take, let's say, an F minor chord. Now of course we have the flam, which I showed you earlier, but with the harp technique you kind of count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you need to hit one of these notes at a certain strong beat. Otherwise, it just becomes random. No one knows whether you're on time, and even you will lose the beat. So 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So basically, every snare drum 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to emphasize my notes a bit harder. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the two hands, think of it as your two hands are one hand for this technique, because they have to work together. And with the use of the pedal, you can play the chord in different positions. But it's essentially, so if you get that going, and maybe float around a little bit of a cello line in the left hand, so you're taking an idea from a harp, but deep down it's a piano. The piano is a monster instrument, so it can do a lot of things alongside what you started off with. Also, what I'm singing could be a melody line which someone else can play, or if you're a producer, you can add, like, I don't know, maybe a theremin to play on a high end. Or whatever, a soprano voice or whatever it might be. The other thing to do with the left hand could be to start with the root of the chord you're trying to play. So you get the depth and then come back and the two hands join. So you get the depth as well. So that becomes like a gong almost. And you might think, oh, your fingers are playing very fast. Actually, it's just because the hands are working as one, it feels like, it's like the speed multiplies by 2, but your fingers don't work that faster because they are working together. So you get kind of a doubling effect of speed. So try and see if you're holding the pedal. You can do things like and then slowly build some speed by maybe even doubling up the right hand. You can kind of take the same arpeggio and go up and down. Things like that, and the left hand. So you get that entire depth. It's a good technique also with, a basic progression like for me. Don't lose time. Again, you don't want to overdo any of these techniques. It's just something to practice, and then you get it with instinct once you've practiced it a lot with a good amount of material. Okay, moving on to the next technique. It'll basically be thirds. Or let's take this on A. So A major's third is C sharp. But you don't play the third on top. You play it in this spread way. Spread third, and then you roll it diatonic. So you can kind of jumble those and you get a nice descending line. Well, Billy Joel's used it in one song already, so I've probably stolen it from him. It's not Christmas, I don't know why I'm playing that, but anyway. Things like this. Let's try this on a minor chord. You can kind of just do that to get a line. And stop there, It doesn't have to be a run. This can be a line. So or major, and if you're good at it, you can kind of keep rolling. I leave you some of my compositions which use this lick. I also use it a lot in my solos, especially if it's a folk song. Things like that at the end of the cycle. Can even ascend it. Okay, so moving on to the last technique for this part, it will be an ongoing series, so you also let me know what you'd like me to cover. These are just the things which I'm familiar with, which I do a lot. On a lighter note, I thought I'd leave you with a very, very simple technique, which is what I call, for want of a better word, the motorbike technique. So it sounds something like this. Kind of gets that vroom of a bike engine. So, boom, boom, so what you do is you go down to the keys, get your chord, let's say F minor. Normally, on a normal day, you're just going to play root and octave, because if you play the whole thing, it's going to be very muddy. But with this motorbike technique, you can kind of get the essence of the technique with just one hand. So whatever the chord is, you roll the notes. But make sure you land on time. If you don't land on time, it's going to be counterproductive. So, and you can play the entire set of chord tones. Maybe you didn't know this, down below, but in this way. Because if you do, people know it's, oh, he's playing an arpeggio. But if you flam it like, so it gives you a very orchestral vibe, as opposed to just the pure notes which have been notated. What's nice is you're engaging these middle fingers as well with this so-called motorbike technique. So, you kind of get motivated to not just play octaves in your left hand, but also whatever the middle notes might be for your brain. Your brain can latch on to it. At least your brain realizes that, hey, there are these other three fingers which could do some passing movements and so on. So for those reasons, I guess, don't just play chords this way. If you want to make it a bit more bolder and assertive, even the motorbike technique, if you go staccato, pretty cool, I think. It almost doesn't even sound like a piano. So a lot of these techniques, you can get from, well, a motorbike engine or a guitar, a harp, an accordion, but the piano is a chameleon of an instrument. So its job is to just try its best to replicate everything around it, and deep down the limitations are obvious. It can only do binary work. You can only play the notes of music, 12 notes. You can't bend them, you can't glide them, you don't have the power of the friction of a violin, between the bow and the instrument to go on and on and on. You don't have the endurance of a human voice, neither do you have the sliding potential of a guitar or the whammy bar of an electric guitar. You don't have any of that if you're a piano player. You're just there to play these 12 notes. So these are hopefully some tools to make something out of them and move forward, and given an existing chord progression, make it a bit more interesting. Like the Bluesy Lick, which we learned can be used for a lot of the blues rock funky stuff. The technique I showed you now could be used for some movie orchestral stuff, and then for folk music, the folk style. For pretty much everything else, you can do that harp technique, then that guitar technique, which I told you in the beginning. But if you go in reverse, you do the add note. So yeah, these were 5 of my go-to techniques as a piano player. I hope you found the information useful. Try and use it in your playing. Send me some recordings as well of you tag either our school account or you can tag me on our Instagram, and continue supporting us by watching the lessons, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing for sure if you haven't already, and support. You can also support us on Patreon for as low as $5 a month. Head over there and see if you find anything useful. And all of our courses at Nathaniel School of Music are structured. Uh, you can learn it either live in live online or offline courses. You can even do pre-recorded content on nathanielschool.com. We call them video courses. You can check that out as well. And yeah, that's about it. I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.